Tangled kicked off the 2010s with some of the most spectacular animation, visuals, and lighting as the most expensive animated film ever made, a title it still holds, as it should. It was a shining beacon of what animators could strive to achieve. However, it may have also been the harbinger of the downfall of new inventive animation techniques. Specifically from studios with big blockbuster money, as always, independent artists bring forth far more creativity forced from them due to a lack of resources. Perhaps animators received the wrong message from this, but for years, what used to be something animation lovers looked forward to every year became the same style.
Look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No.
The focus shifted from the endless possibilities animation provides to an emphasis on pushing technology as close to realism as possible. Before we can dive into why that is a problem, we must first examine how animation was used for years before it turned into what it is now. Walt Disney once penned a famous memo in 1935 in which he outlined the way his animators should be trained. One important point he noted was this: the first duty of the cartoon is not to picture or duplicate real action or things as they actually happen, but to give a caricature of life in action, to picture on the screen things that have run through the imagination of the audience, to bring to life dream fantasies that we have all thought of during our lives, or have had pictured to us in various forms during our lives. Also to caricature things of life as it is today, or make fantasies of things we think of today. Animation was and is the only way to visually create impossible things never seen in reality. Even live action and worlds of fantasy require the limitation of much reality in order to maintain our suspension of disbelief. Otherwise, we enter the realm of uncanniness. A simple representation of this was how characters and even inanimate objects express emotion and exaggerate movements in order to get a laugh from the audience. You would never see a character fighting the cogs of a clock now. Even Casita in the film Encanto required a logical explanation to be a living house. They simply couldn't just let it happen, because the film is set in relative reality. Jon Favreau, famous for his influence on the beloved movie Elf, and also Marvel and Star Wars, was passionate about pushing technology further and further to witness its capabilities. In the live-action adaptations, Jungle Book and The Lion King, the emphasis was not to reimagine the stories into new adaptation, but rather to retell the cartoons shot for shot, by pushing animation as far as they could into realism.
Jon Favreau talks endlessly about how he wanted this movie to feel like a documentary.
Well, for this specific application, we really wanted to feel as though we were filming a documentary, documentaries, and hopefully it will look like a live-action film and like a documentary.
But what is the point when we can record animals with a camera?
It's pretty much starting with the backbone or the basis of real life. The way it moves and looks and scrunches its face and the way it reacts to light. The only fantastical thing is that they actually speak.
What do you think they're talking about?
Now, Jon Favreau's commentary track on the Blu-ray was actually recorded before the premiere of the film, so he winds up accidentally talking about everything that's wrong with the film while pretending as though they're benefits. It's absolutely bewildering hearing him justify all of these changes that make the film so much worse.
All the ways that they brought emotion, anthropomorphic emotion, to these naturalistic animals, these animals that didn't have any expression. We wanted to limit the scope as much as we could to the naturalism of the animal's behavior. It's very easy to exaggerate performances on a sequence like this, but it would feel a little bit, the physics would feel a little cartoony. And again, really no emotion in the face, which is counterintuitive if you're doing a film like Lion King, where you want the animals to express a lot of emotion.
This very departure from the purpose of animation being a place where imagination can run free poisoned animated films for so long. This crippled animators, set designers, and storyboard artists in so many ways. They now had to conform style for the desire for realism. You'll notice Glenn Keane's once unique Disney style replicated over and over, and over, and over, and over, and over and over and over, and over. It even bled into non-Disney studios everywhere. Is style important? Yes! You'll notice the best works develop an entire look to match the tale being woven before you. A look at the Disney Renaissance in the 90s is proof enough. Hercules developed a style that depicts people, animals, and plants with shapes they would never be. The swirls and the edges are reminiscent of Greek art and pottery, perfect for a story about Greek mythology. Mulan is another example of the careful thought behind the style to mimic Chinese artwork. Even the opening credits pay proper homage and respect to their inspiration. Atlantis bridged the 90s into the 2000s, with a style nodding towards comic books.
A lot of our movies, when you look at them, are based on very familiar designs. You could arguably say Beauty and the Beast is like a moving children's book, or you could say Sleeping Beauty is moving medieval tapestries. At the beginning of Atlantis, we kind of said, what if it's a moving comic book?
Rather than necessarily sticking from the visual development people that we had inside the studio, we actually hired freelancers from the outside who were working in the live action business. We call it look outside the gene pool. It's to get a group of people working on it who just bring a different design sense and something that we might not have seen before in the animation world.
And then lastly, Mike Mignola.
Well, Mike is a great comic book artist, and both Gary and I have been comic book fans from way back, and we kind of discovered his comics at around the same time, and really enjoyed reading them and love the artwork and love the stories.
He's done a number of comic books. The most famous or notorious is his Hellboy series, which Kirk and I are both huge fans of. We recognized the style early on as something that would fit in with the kind of thing we were doing.
So we were really drawn to Mike's work because of its very high contrast style, very bold use of black, and a kind of limited color palette. And that we were drawn to that. It just felt appropriate for the movie. And rather than just sort of take his comics as an inspiration, we decided to just go to the man himself and get Mike Mignola on the phone. Unfortunately, he was he was willing and able.
I can't get over the fact that these guys even knew who I was. And when I first came up here, there were these big boards set up. There were panels from whole pages from various comics I'd done, and notes all over them explaining how to draw like me. Mike Mignola does this, Mike Mignola does this. And the woman who did these things, I actually had to ask her what some of the notes meant. I didn't know how to draw like me, it's just the way I draw.
That's how much passion there used to be at Disney. You can see Pixar attempting to reclaim that sense of what animation used to be, but they are completely missing the mark. They have at least stylized the characters, but do they stylize the movements, the environments, the editing, the camera work? Does the style match the tone or meld the world into one cohesive whole? Perhaps the most infamous and egregious example was from The Good Dinosaur. We all remembered how excited we felt from the teaser trailers when we saw the beautiful scenery and the silhouettes of dinosaurs. But then we found out it was just Gumbysaurus! Arlo, the ball of Play-Doh. Sorry, that's disrespectful to Gumby.
The nice thing about Gumby is that you can use him as window caulk.
The character designs don't match the heavy nature of the story. It is not thoughtful enough to represent naive youth in contrast to their harsh environment. Simply put, these diabolical crimes against Play-Doh make me as disappointed as what Gandalf felt when Pippin swore fealty to Denethor in payment for Boromir's sacrifice. Simply put, there is no artistic signature that makes new animated blockbusters distinguishable from the next. If I took a still from a bunch of these movies and placed them side by side to show someone who had never seen any of them, would they be able to tell that they were from different movies? A lot of people pointed to wokeness and political agendas stagnating movies as if that's the only problem.
You're not going out like that, are you?
My panda, my choice, Mom.
Certainly those things are a genuine detriment to movies, but I think the issue is also hugely tied to the lack of innovation or thought. In a weird way, animation is a subset of film that requires continual innovation to thrive. Every single animated film in production makes monumentous improvements in technology in order to play with techniques and style. I believe at long last we are witnessing a new animation renaissance that has been brewing for quite some time. Klaus was a shining beacon in these dark, creatively void years when the director wanted to revisit 2D animation techniques. Many people believed the movie was CG, but no, it was innovation at its finest by carefully orchestrating the lighting on every drawing, omitting harsh outlines.
When the animation process for Netflix's Klaus began, it looked something like this. It eventually started looking like a pretty impressive 2D film. But then, the animators went one step further to create a film that looked like this. Suddenly the characters looked three-dimensional. But unlike most animated movies these days, the characters in Klaus aren't CGI, and can't even be considered 3D. It's all just a trick of the light.
Everyone can, however, easily point to the Spiderverse as absolutely groundbreaking. Sony took longer on this movie, having to invent entire software that would scatter lights and shadows into the comic book dots. Of course, adding moving panels on screen or animated motion speed lines were novel concepts before. They aren't necessarily needed in a motion picture, but the addition demonstrates a love and care and reverence toward comic books. And also that a lot of thought was put into the creation of the style, the very essence of the entire work.
One thing we wanted to do with this movie is bring the hand of the artist back, bring line drawings back into it, basically bring more of the art back into it. So it's not just the computer, it's the hand of the artist in there as well.
We as a show stacked hands and decided that we're going to prioritize good taste over accuracy. Accuracy is one of those things that computers do really well, and people are better at good taste, and sometimes having things misaligned or feeling slightly imbalanced is appealing, and it adds to the design. And so this process of every department contributing a little bit, everyone gets to improve on it as part of our workflow. The imperfection is charming. Life's imperfect. Computers are too perfect, and that's one of those things that feels sterile. One of those things that feels like it got so much more design in it because there's all these little misregisterings and little misalignments, and contacts aren't absolutely perfect. Again, it's good taste is more important than accuracy.
Interestingly, I believe it was actually the Lego Movie, which kicked off approaching CG animated films in a new way. The animators wanted to pay homage to early stop-motion Lego short films by rendering the movie to appear stop-motion without actually being stop-motion.
The directors wanted to really get the idea that the characters were holding a brick and putting brick on brick, and we were able on our machines to pull in any Lego brick from the Lego library and add it to our scene, so that gave us a lot of power to make stuff up on the fly.
We wanted the water to be made out of Lego bricks. We wanted the explosions and fire and smoke and all elements to be made out of animating Lego bricks.
And always be sure to keep the soap out of your ass!
So that if you froze any single frame of the movie, it would be something that you could actually build yourself.
We built a system that really utilizes real Lego bricks. And we've actually used that system for all of our modelers. One of the things that we're really positive about is the fact that the film itself is not a cheat. It's a real Lego block film. Like, all of the things that you see on screen are 100% Lego blocks.
But they had to figure out ways to make this effect entirely in their software. This problem caused the creators to think of animating in twos. This means, instead of creating realistic motion blur and movement between frames, each image was placed next to each other, just like in older standard animations, to create that jittery, spontaneous effect. When shots are slowed down, you can even see the additional effort of rendering extra Lego pieces to replace motion blur.
What is the Lego Movie? Well, it's hard to tell from the title.
The whole world is created out of Lego bricks, or as I like to call them, bricks, and populated with Lego figurines, or as they should be called, people.
My character, Emmett, he's just a normal guy who gets thrown on this crazy adventure with some famous personalities. I mean, it was fun, but, well, there were a lot of big egos on the set.
Obviously, like all my movies, Batman is the main character. And this is no exception.
There is no question. The lead in this film was me. Hi, everybody. Be quiet, you. Whoopsie. No, I'm the lead.
Yeah, I just stayed out of it.
It was an honor to be portrayed by the golden-voiced Morgan Freeman. That man could read the phone book and make it sound interesting. 555-3492. Just listen to that rich molasses.
You think that for a character as important as President Business, they'd be able to get someone with serious chops. You know, I'm talking De Niro, Pacino, Ryan Gosling, Cuba Gooding Jr. But no, they get Will Ferrell? When you're scraping the bottom of the barrel, you find yourself with a Will Ferrell.
Movies like Klaus, Into the Spiderverse, and the Lego Movie, I think, were exactly what encouraged recent animators to break out of the safety of studio chains and invent new techniques and distinct styles as animation intended to be. I couldn't be more delighted by the visual feasts we have been treated to lately. Seth Rogen's TMNT may not have been a great movie, but its animation was gorgeously disgusting. Who says the line work has to be clean when the story is set in a grungy city with turtle teens who are going to like juvenile humor? Del Toro's Pinocchio may have been in the works for 15 years, but its timing couldn't be more welcomed in this time of being starved of good filmmaking. How thought-provoking and meaningful every line, every beat, every moment this version of Pinocchio is.
Life is such a wonderful gift.
This is how you make an adaptation. The very nature of stop-motion animation is what often forces the artist to slow down and think intentionally about every moment, every movement, and every expression. No visual blandness occurs because so much thought must happen for every small detail, whereas newer animators are surrounded by tools which will do much of the physics, lighting, and movement for them without much thought as to why or whether the animation needs tweaking. The Mitchells vs. the Machines was another one to surprise me with its wit and unconventional animating, where animators were going back to the roots of not being bound by reality. They were able to convey the inner feelings of characters on screen without other characters seeing all the wackiness in front of them.
Oh, my eyes! Brothers, run!
I have made the metal ones pay for their crimes.
Mom's scary now.
And of course, Puss in Boots' The Last Wish took intense topics and packaged them for families of all ages with one of the most tightly written scripts I've seen in years. Even though the film was a sequel to a spin-off of the Shrek franchise, the animators didn't let that shackle them to the visual style of Shrek. The creative team pushed themselves to the storytelling limits, always asking the question, how can we visually make this joke funnier?
Hey, you want to see something cool?
Or portray something as scarier. In short, they remembered that animation doesn't have to follow any rules. If they want to depict the wolf in black, white, and red for a few frames, they can. If they want to place Puss in Boots' thoughts next to him on screen, they are at liberty to do so. Lastly, I cannot make a video like this without pointing out that Riot Games has been creating cinematic shorts for their game characters for years and years, that had their fans begging for feature-length films. In fact, they very well may be the ones responsible for inspiring studios to allow more freedom for their animators after the release of Arcane. The show somehow blended this painted 2D effect into the realm of computer generation. It allowed for the eclectic world of League of Legends to feel blended into one whole. It allowed for adult topics and themes, reminding us once more that animation is a medium, and certainly not a genre, something the Oscars will always refuse to acknowledge.
What would winning an Oscar mean to you?
Well, of course, it's a tremendous honor to be nominated with such a prestigious group. And these are all highly accomplished films. They are the best of the best. Look at this. You're looking at Princess. What's the Secret of Kells? These are all cartoons. I thought we got nominated like a real movie.
Well, it would get my mom off my back. You know, like if she said, Coraline, go to bed. I could say, Mom, I've got an Academy Award, or tidy your room. Oscar, Mom, deal with it. Oh, that won't work, will it?
Wow, just being nominated is brilliant. Because more people will discover our film, and me. And I got to come all the way from Ireland. I might get to meet that nice Mr. Martin with the lovely silver hair, like mine.
Oh, you know, just to be nominated.
We won! This moment is so much bigger than me. This moment is for all the nameless, faceless gators who came before.
Lewis, it is just a nomination.
This isn't gonna end up on YouTube, is it?
So what does this nomination mean to you?
Huh? What?
What is that? I will explore it now.
Doug, stop that!
This is not food.
Get down!
Hey, look here, a squirrel. Squirrel?
For the love of Pete.
Now, I had intended on this video to remain upbeat and hopeful, with enthusiasm for what is to come. I had put this essay to the side for so long that now perhaps I can see I was overly optimistic. Things are looking dire for mainstream animation at the moment. Disney and Pixar are continuing their trend for the same safe animation style, perhaps mistakenly taking the wrong message from Wish bombing on the nuclear level, and pointing to their poor attempt at taking animation risks as the problem. Illumination continues to be, well, Illumination, using the exact same style from the inception of their studio, but at least they have been increasing their budget. Does that really matter though when they are milking the Minions franchise until it bleeds? Please make it stop. DreamWorks was giving me hope. We can all look forward to The Wild Robot, but we can't deny the problems coming up since they are now outsourcing their animation to Sony Imageworks in an effort to cut costs. Are we in animation purgatory? Is punishment for not recognizing masterpieces like El Dorado, Atlantis, and Treasure Planet when they were released? Please forgive us for those sins. Everyone knows they're good, we promise. Please, I just want a new movie that is good, I beg of you, filmmaking gods. Now, you may think I'm making a big deal over nothing. They are just movies after all, except they aren't. Movies form a cultural landscape. While they reflect culture, they also create it. Because families take our young minds and future generations to animated films, we are developing their tastes. We are developing their morals and ideas. These are the future artists and creatives. And as sad as it is, you would be amazed at the number of kids who haven't been shown the best classics we grew up with. As someone who worked at Disney, I can tell you that with assured knowledge. What can we do? I tire of saying this, but vote with your dollar. Abstain from watching those cash grabs. Money will speak louder than anything we can post online. Although keep your voices heard. Support smaller projects that could use our funding. It's hard to combat overseas markets that will continue to lap up the next Despicable Me movie. Or Transformers. Don't forget about Transformers. But take heart. I know the world is still bursting with creative people. Perhaps Hollywood will crumble at long last, and there will be much rejoicing in the land. Or perhaps because now the common man has access to phenomenal technology, we will see a creative boom in other ways. And boy, do I look forward to seeing that.
Hey there, future Rolo here. I just wanted to add one more thing. That's, as far as DreamWorks is concerned, there are some exciting acquisitions that we can look forward to, even though they are going to inevitably give us that donkey spin-off film. There are other fantastic things in the works, and I'm someone of the opinion that we cannot expect change to happen if we are not optimistic and hopeful. So cling to your hope and your optimism, because I think change is around the corner.
This has been Rolo Descendant. Thank you for traversing the adventure in my thoughts, but now it's time for you to find your own.